Good evening, everyone. We'll get started. So find your Heavenly Highway hymn book. We'll start with 251. Stand up for Jesus, 251. Stand up for Jesus. He soldiers on the cross. Lift high his royal banner. It must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his army shall he lead. Till every foe is vanquished, and Christ is Lord indeed. Sing the third. Stand up for Jesus. Stand in his strength alone. The arm of flesh will fail you. He dare not trust your own. Put on the gospel armor. Each piece put on with prayer. Where duty calls for danger, be never wanting there. Stand up for Jesus. The strife will not be long. This day the noise of battle, the next the victor's song. To him that overcometh, a crown of life shall be. He with the King of glory shall reign eternally. The rest of these songs that we're going to sing tonight, probably been a while since you sung them, but we're going to do that anyway. Number 91. Number 91, we'll work till Jesus comes. 91. Oh, land of rest for me, I sigh, when will the moment come, when I shall lay my armor by and dwell at peace at home. We'll work till Jesus comes, we'll work till Jesus comes, we'll work till Jesus comes, and we'll be gathered home. To Jesus Christ I fled, for sadness leaving, he ceased to roam, and leave for support on his breast, till he conduct me home. We'll work till Jesus comes, we'll work till Jesus comes, we'll work till Jesus comes, and we'll be gathered home. I sought at once my Savior's side, no more my steps shall roam. With him I'll brave death's chilling tide, and reach my heavenly home. We'll work till Jesus comes, we'll work till Jesus comes, we'll work till Jesus comes, and we'll be gathered home. Now let's try number 29. We did this once, maybe in the last year, so let's try bearing the cross to win the crown. Number 29. I'm just a pilgrim passing through this dark land. Sorrow nothing but trouble have I found. Oh, I need thy light to guide me aright. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. Bearing the cross, I'm bearing the cross. Bearing the cross to win the crown. I need thy light, to guide me aright. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. Often my soul is burning heavy with care. Troubles undo, turn me round. But I keep walking in the straight narrow way. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. Bearing the cross, I'm bearing the cross. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. I need thy light to guide me aright. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. Must Jesus bear the cross and let us go free, and until the sun of light goes down. For there's a cross for you, there's one for me. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. Bearing the cross, I'm bearing the cross. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. I need thy light to guide me aright. I am bearing the cross to win the crown. Now the same thought is in this other song that's much older, number 221, and we will sing all 4 verses of Must Jesus Bear the Cross Alone. And then we'll turn this over to our pastor. 221. Must Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free? No, there's a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me. The consecrated cross I'll bear till death shall set me free. And then behold, my crown to wear, for there's a crown for me. Upon the crystal pavement down, and Jesus' name set me. Joyful I'll cast my golden crown, and His dear name greet me. Oh, precious cross, oh, glorious crown, oh, resurrection day. Angels from the stars come down and bear
Thank you for being with us tonight. We are going to be in Luke chapter 14, verse 27. Luke 14, verse 27. It's good to see each of you tonight. It's good to have the Hayes family from our sister church in Duncan, Unity Missionary Baptist Church, and glad to have them and their kids with us tonight to worship, and I appreciate that. Appreciate you being with us tonight. Notice what Jesus said in Luke 14:27. Sometimes these small verses, just a sentence of Jesus speaks so much volume. The Lord Jesus said, "Whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." Let's read that again. "And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." Jesus said there, whosoever, meaning anyone who purports to be a disciple of Christ in truth, not just becoming one because they say they are, but one who is a disciple in truth. If they do not bear their cross and come after him, he says he cannot be my disciple. So I got to thinking about that. I want to talk tonight a little bit about bearing our cross. I've not heard a lot of sermons through the years. If I have, they've been probably more in my youth than they have recently, because I don't hear a lot of sermons or a lot of studies about bearing a cross. We do a lot of talk about the cross, obviously, because Christ and his sacrifice upon the cross is at the nucleus of everything that we believe and everything that we are. And we all know that a cross signifies sacrifice, but we don't talk a lot about it. Except I do hear people say occasionally, well, speaking of something, well, I guess that's my cross to bear. But we want to talk specifically about bearing our cross in relationship to Christ. The first thing that's striking to me is that not only here but elsewhere, when Jesus talks about the issue of us bearing or taking up a cross, he never tells us what our cross is. Now, we're going to look at a verse of scripture here just above this, where we can kind of get us a little sense contextually here about what a cross may be that we are to bear. But the Lord does not say specifically what our cross is. We certainly see hints at it. We see maybe some characteristics of what bearing our cross is, but Jesus is really not specific to say, well, this is your cross to bear, this is my cross to bear, etc., and so forth. But the word bearing, or the thought, I should say, of bearing a cross speaks of sacrifice, and it speaks of cost. You cannot bear a cross unless something is expended from you in bearing a cross. There are passages where Jesus speaks of taking up the cross, but really the issue of bearing the cross is really just a few times. It is said of Simon that he did bear the cross of Jesus after Jesus, or when he was compelled to take it from Jesus, and the soldiers and those accompanying Jesus told him to. But even the word that is translated in our King James bearing does not always go back to the same particular Greek word. We'll talk more about that at the end of our study, but I do not know what your cross is to bear in your walk with the Lord. And you do notice in our text, Jesus said, if we do not bear our cross and follow him, we cannot be his disciple. He didn't just say, put a cross on yourself. He said, if you do not bear your cross and come after me or follow Christ, then we cannot be his disciples. So the mere teaching of the verse is a verse that says that we must walk, we must move with the cross. So we're going to look at three simple things. You don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar, you don't have to have a bachelor's, have a college to get this tonight. All you got to do is think. First of all, cross signifies a weight. It signifies a weight, and it's not a weight that you choose to carry. It is a weight that you're called to carry as you walk and follow Christ. There is no cross that is borne in relationship to Christ which is not burdensome. There is no weight that is borne as it relates to Christ but what is burdensome. I remember years ago being at a youth rally, and part of the program was that they showed Christ carrying his cross to the side of the crucifixion. In that particular program, they did not involve someone to play the part of Simon, but who took it, but Jesus just bore his cross. And afterwards, the young man did the portrayal of Jesus, did a wonderful job of indicating that cross was weighing him down. He did a great, if you will, acting job. And after the program, some of the kids from the church that I pastored started going to pick up the cross because they thought it must have been heavy. They were amazed to find out it was styrofoam, so it wasn't that heavy. Well, let it be understood that no cross that you are called to bear in your life as it relates to following Christ is going to be borne except it burdens you. The word bear in our text means to bear what is burdensome. It's always used in its classical meaning to emphasize a weight. And it is a weight that is placed upon you. My cross is a weight that is placed upon me. It's something that affects us. It's something that is otherwise dear to us, and it has to become a cross as we follow Jesus. And I said a while ago, we're going to mention some of the things in the previous verse that indicate maybe a cross that Jesus was referencing. If you look back in verse 26, Jesus said, "And if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." Now, I'm not saying that Jesus said that the cross that was to be borne was to be the weight of having to choose to put Jesus before your own family, but I think it's obvious from the tone of the text and from other things Jesus taught in relationship to the issue of following him, that one of the crosses that we must bear is to bear the weight of choosing to put Christ before our loved ones. And in so doing, you will have to carry a weight. It may be just the weight of inner struggle. You know, most people struggle with trying to keep all the things in their life and their daily activities and paying careful attention. I don't know of any father or mother, and there's probably some, but I don't know of any who probably doesn't struggle with thinking, I'm not giving enough time to my children, to my mate, whoever it is. And that's just talking about the struggle to live life and do everything that we need to do and such as that. Well, how much more is it a cross and a weight to bear, and trying to put Christ first, and then that meaning what it's going to mean in relationship to your family, your loved ones? Well, there's far more crosses to bear, but the point of it is that to follow Christ requires that we make sacrifices. And for some people, that cross, since it's not a styrofoam cross, is just really hard to bear. There's no cross that is born for Christ that is anything but burdensome. And if you choose to bear your cross in following Christ, you will add burdens to your life. And understand that that's why many people choose not to be a disciple in truth. They will stay pacified by being a disciple in name only, meaning that they say they're a disciple of Christ, but in the Lord's standards, they never make it. Because if you're going to be a disciple of Jesus Christ in truth, you're going to have to put everything else second tier to Jesus Christ. Now, I submit to you that if you do that, you'll find that you'll love your family far better, and God will bless your family. You know, many people think, well, you know, I took my kids to church. I don't understand why they're not in church. Well, this isn't what I'm fixing to say, isn't the only reason, but let me tell you that if you have shown to them that you put them in front of your love for Christ, it could be that one of the reasons why that they have chosen not to follow Christ is because they never saw your love for Jesus mirrored to them by the sacrifices that you made for Christ, and they were not propelled and compelled by that love. No cross that is borne for Jesus Christ is without burdensome. By the way, the weight of a cross is easier to bear if the materials of the cross are dead. Now, wood, if it's green, is heavier than dead wood. You know that. You know that. And if you are still attached and still akin to the world, it'll be harder for you to bear your cross. One of the things that Jesus also taught, and they all link up, is that if we do not die to ourselves, if we do not die to ourselves and to the world, then we cannot correctly follow Him. Now, what can you do to make your cross easier, though it's going to be burdensome? Is dying to yourself. Dying to yourself. In verse 26, Jesus said that not only are we to love less, and the word hate doesn't mean hate, but it means love less. Again, second tier, and love them appropriately in that, but He said second tier love for all of our loved ones. But then notice at the end of verse 26, yea, and His life also. I tell you what, that's the last thing Jesus said before He said, ye cannot be my disciples. But it may be the most important thing, because dying to ourselves is what helps free us to appropriately shoulder the weight of carrying the cross that we must bear for Jesus. Dying to ourselves help feed that secondary love that we ought to have for our loved ones. A cross cannot be carried correctly if we have not died to ourselves. Some people say, and I've heard it said, and I've heard it addressed this way. They've talked about what God has allowed to come into their life, and they say, it is my cross to bear. God, I've even heard people say, God has given me this cross to bear. And all the time they say that, not all of them, but some of them, will question why God has given them that cross to bear. I can guarantee you, if you have been given what you believe is a cross to bear, and then question why God has given it to you, it'll make you collapse under the weight of whatever cross that God has given you to carry. Now, this is part of what Jesus says when he says his life also. If the cross is so close to your heart and stays close to your heart rather than your heart being given to Christ, then it can very easily and often does shake you from following Christ. The hardest cross that we bear may be dying to self and letting ourselves become an agency who will bear the cross that we are called to bear. A cross signifies weight. Secondly, the position of a cross affects its weight. And I'm going to use an illustration of what I see a lot, a backpack. First of all, bearing the cross means accepting the cross. Understand that. The Lord did not say, pull your cross. And he didn't say that we are to drag our cross. Sometimes if you pull or drag or push, it helps take some energy off of you from carrying it. But Jesus said, you must bear the cross. He didn't tell us pull a cross. Pull a cross makes me think of reluctance. Pushing a cross makes me think of reluctance. But he says, bear. Bear. Most people would rather have to pull a cross, push a cross. But he says, bear. And bearing means that we accept it upon ourselves and it becomes a part of our travel. Remember, I'd never have, to my remembrance, used a backpack. Might should have, but I just didn't. I remember being behind two people who both had heavy backpacks. I guess they were going hiking. And they took their backpacks off, went in, got something to drink. And as they were coming out, one of the guys said to the other one, he said, I'd give anything not to have to put all that weight on my back again. And I think from their backpacks, it looked like they must be heavy. But I've thought about that because maybe some people weigh down too much, but you have to accept it. You have to accept it. If you're going to bear the cross, you have to accept it. A cross must be constantly positioned. A cross has to be constantly positioned because you're following Christ, therefore you're bearing your cross. That's going to be your entire life. You don't bear a cross at times in your life if you're going to be the disciple of Jesus. Jesus said you have to bear your cross. And it's spoken in a present, ongoing thing. So you have to bear your cross and you have to follow him. And all of that's done constantly. So you don't have, if you're going to be a disciple of Christ, I don't have, if we're going to be disciples to Christ, we don't have crosses every once in a while. It is a constant requirement in the life of discipleship. Therefore, there are times you have to reposition your cross. Just like somebody who carries a backpack has to reposition the backpack so they can continue walking. remember seeing a little kid. You see these kids going to school a lot, and they have, and I haven't seen it so much anymore. Maybe they changed it, but I used to see like 7-year-old kids going to elementary school when I'd be going by school. And the backpacks that they'd carry would look 3 times their size. And they'd make a few steps, and then they have to do this and do that. And I thought, I can't imagine a kid having to carry that size of a backpack. But sometimes the backpack will slide off to the side, out of position. Well, in our walk as a disciple of Jesus Christ, sometimes we have to realign the position of our cross. Because if you were literally carrying or bearing the cross and it slides off to the side, you're not taking the cross anymore. It's taking you off of your walk. And that happens with some people. With some people, they don't allow themselves to adjust. Somebody says, well, what do you mean? Well, let me just give you an example of somebody I think had to reposition his cross in his life a lot, and that would be David. I think David had to reposition his cross. I think when he committed his sin with Bathsheba, and he wrote Psalm 51, if you'll allow me, and I'm up here and you're down there, so how can you stop me? But I think in Psalm 51, if I can use it this way, that was David repositioning his cross. And somebody says, what was his cross? His cross, if nothing else, was this: I'm the king of God. I cannot live. I cannot live in my lust and in my carnality. Sometimes you might not commit the sin that David committed, but sometimes that's repositioning your cross. Because if you say, well, I'm a child of God, I can do such and such, or I have this right, I need some me time. That's big. I need some me time. All this stuff we use, and sometimes that helps that cross just get out of kilter. And sometimes we have to reposition our cross and realize we don't have the liberties sometimes that the world has. We just don't. Now, you can say, well, preachers are doing things right and left these days compared to what they used to do, and you're right. But do I have the right to say, well, other preachers do it? Does a church member have the right to live as the world does? No, indeed no. Sometimes God has to cause us to reposition our cross. And in your life, you're going to have to do that. If you're going to follow after Jesus continually, it demands sometimes a readjustment of your cross. And David would do that. I think even at the death of the baby, after Bathsheba gave birth and the baby lived for about a week, I think David had to reposition his cross. I think in all the things, all we're shown in the Bible is that he got up, went in, cleaned up, went into the house of the Lord and worshiped and such as that. But don't fool yourself. In his mind, a lot of what was going on in his mind was repositioning his cross. I got to get up and I got to start serving the Lord again. You remember when Absalom died? He was mourning, crying. One of his great men came to him, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but you can read it. He said, what are you doing? You got people to rule out here. God's put you in this position. Get up and lead your people. And that was a readjusting of his cross. Our crosses have to be readjusted in their position sometimes. Lastly, don't let us ever forget that our cross is for us to transport. Each individual has a cross. Maybe have several crosses, but each individual has a cross. He doesn't say some have them, some don't. Jesus said, whosoever does not bear his cross. Everyone has a cross. And you know why? Because our crosses are very much our testimony that we have in following Christ. That may be one of the biggest testimonies that we have. We can't put them off because the crosses that we are called to bear may be sometimes the biggest testimonies that we have for Christ in what the Lord is using. We don't bear a cross occasionally, we constantly bear a cross because, again, it's continuous action. And let it also be said, much like in the physical realm, strength comes from transporting and carrying our cross. You get stronger when you bear your cross and follow Christ. Why do weightlifters have all those weights and stuff? Why do people who train to run put weights upon themselves? Because they understand that carrying weight builds strength in their body. Well, spiritually, it's no different. Carrying the weight of your cross will make you stronger. You won't know your strength, though, until you put your cross down when you go before the Lord. You won't know it until you get before the Lord. I was talking to someone one time, and it was somebody who I had pastored for a while, and they had struggled in their spiritual life with some things that I will call were crosses that they were called to bear. And at their first walk and first steps in bearing those crosses, they just didn't think they could make it. And as I tried to encourage them and told them what God could do through their bearing the cross, I didn't know if they were going to make it either. They had some dark days. Days they couldn't handle the thought of having another day to carry that cross. But as they kept carrying the cross and walking with Jesus, following Jesus, don't separate that. Don't drop it off, because that's a part of the strengthening that the cross gives. But as they followed, they had fewer dark days, and they became stronger to the point that one day they said to me, Brother R.L., do you remember a few years ago when I told you I didn't think I could make it, handle it? I said, oh, yes, I do. They said, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? And I thought, well, it's what I said. I said, well, I think it's just a couple of years ago, wasn't it? And they said, no, that's not what I mean. They said, it's a long time ago in my spiritual life, because they said, I can see how the Lord has used that to strengthen me to the point I'm at now. And I said, I'm glad. It's been a long time. Paul had a cross. I don't know, I've often thought it was Paul, and I didn't think it in this term, but I kind of wonder when Paul got the thorn in the flesh, I kind of wonder if at that point, as many struggles as he had been through, he kind of wondered if there'd be any cross that he had to bear that would cause him to feel like he couldn't carry it. You know, I'm not saying he did, but I could see where I would. And, you know, the thorn in the flesh came, and it was so strong, so heavy, that he asked the Lord 3 times. He begged him to take it away. Didn't say, and I love to say this every time, he didn't say, Lord, your will be done. He said he begged the Lord to take it away 3 times. So it was heavy. He didn't think he could bear it. And the Lord said, you're still following, you're still walking. And he said, this is your cross now to carry from here on in. And Paul said, Give me grace and strength, and I'll keep walking. And in that way, he got stronger than he'd been. As strong as he was, he still got stronger because strength comes from transporting crosses. And the testimony comes by transporting crosses. Bearing weight, when you carry weight, if you spend time talking, it takes away your strength to carry the weight you are having to carry. You ever worked with somebody and you were doing something that caused you to have to exert yourself physically? And most people that talk all the time are not people who do physical work like what I'm fixing to say. But have you ever done physical work and there's somebody working with you and they talk all the time? And you're putting out so much energy that you think if they just keep talking, I'll tune them out. But if they ask me a question, I don't think I can tell them the answer and still do my work because you're that exhausted. Because whatever work you're doing, it requires exertion. There's a lot of people who do a lot of talking, but they don't carry their cross. If you carry your cross and you walk with Jesus, it'll do far greater impact to a lost and dying world than you sitting around talking and never carrying the cross that you should be carrying. Jesus does not ask for words, he asks for action. Bear your cross and follow me. He said, you will be my disciple. Now, I'm going to close it by saying this. Jesus uses a lot of words in the Gospels to talk about taking up the cross or bearing the cross. And the word bear is as I said, translated in the King James. It's translated bear, but it's different words. Now, the Greek word that is used here, and again, this is from Jesus' lips. This Greek word, Jesus uses it elsewhere. But as it relates to bearing a cross, this is the only time Jesus used it. It is also interesting to see that in John's account of Jesus being given a cross, it uses the same Greek word that's here to say that Jesus was bearing his cross. So it is only used twice in the Gospels or in the New Testament as it relates to bearing a cross. One, to give testimony that Jesus bore his own cross. And two, for Jesus to give testimony to his disciples that we, like him, and he knew he would do it one day, that we, like him, bear the cross that we are given for Christ and follow after him. And when we do, obviously, we will be disciples indeed, as Jesus said we would. I've asked Chase to put on the screen the first verse of the last song we sang, Must Jesus Bear the Cross Alone? And I'm going to ask you to stand, and we're going to sing a cappella that last verse, and you will be dismissed. May God help us go out and bear our crosses until Jesus comes. Brother Dale, lead us. Jesus bear the cross alone.